Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you live around the world. Back once more with a slight iteration and an update on what I'd been doing or promoting along the lines of having a systematic and robust approach. This is not it, and it showed up the issues to me once again, why it is best to have that regimented approach. Anyway, these struts aren't the same strut just with the change in shape. They were taken from this model here, moved along and adjusted slightly. Once I'd done that, I'd realised that I'd made that classical error of trying to use one model accurately and introduce problems, because I can't simply move them the same amount and have the identical result. Therefore, these brackets are necessarily in a different orientation slightly. Anyway, that's not the reason for the video. What do you think suits best? This original version, where I'd, for no particular reason, created this indent for the bracket to sit in. This was done primarily so that these brackets could fit around the central steel tube without interfering with each other. It's a Sunday and my tongue is lazy. So that's why this was recessed, and I think it is actually probably a good idea initially, and besides which we don't know what the finished dimension of these struts will be. Assuming 50mm is probably going a step too far, because we don't necessarily have finished timbers, if finished timbers are what we're using, of 50mm. It's generally 45mm or slightly under. Anyway, I digress. One of the things I touched on in a video some time ago, and I don't even know whether it was Domes, is be mindful how you group things and their orientation. These are now all orientated around the three axes that SketchUp has, the X, Y and Z axes. When you're modeling things, however, sometimes they will be not orientated around the X, Y or Z axes. And when you come to move, manipulate, scale, you can have problems, because if we went to scale this, it would be going through these axes, not the neutral axes for the model. And when we start to try and join in, because each one of them will be relatively the same when they're rotated, but not when in position. Ditto here, if you create something in position, you can see this was created in where, if you recall the models that I was using, the honeycomb models to base the struts upon, this is in a compound axis orientation. Now manipulating it now is problematic in the extreme, so it may be better to spend a little bit of time orientating your models around the XYZ axes as of the base alignment for the SketchUp itself, the default axes lines, so that once you come to manipulate them back in place, they still have their normal axes line. So if I wanted to scale this, I can easily, and that would be more productive. It may take a little bit to get into that habit, which I haven't yet to be disciplined enough to do that, but because we wanted to, and the reason, there may be reason for not doing it, but we saw that we built in a little inaccuracy in this mustard coloured strut. Well, that's more likely to occur if we take them out of position, reorientate them, put them back into position. So you make sure, if you do it, that you have a reference point. And a good reference point would be something like this intersection point or this intersection point, so you can draw them back into position. So I'm going to put money where my mouth is. This model here, if I combine the two, the bracket and the strut, and I make a group, how easy it, and I haven't done this is not a setup to show you how clever I am, because it might turn out to be how unclever I am. But let's take this model. Now there's been a little change in this model, so don't go stressing over it. But this point here is in this point here. This point here should be a common point for all of the mustard coloured struts. So if I can bring that in there, insert it to that point, rotate it in the horizontal, and I'm going to use that line there with this line here, I should get a correct orientation. And you can see here it's been moved slightly, and any inaccuracies should show up straight away. Now you have to know where that inaccuracy was. I know where this one was, because at one stage I moved the bracket out 0.5 of a millimeter to better align with our inside and outside diameters and the crush and pressure zones of the brackets. So if I move the mustard coloured strut out 0.5 millimeter or back in, whatever it would be, I'd get the alignment. But that show, and there's a bigger discrepancy there, because as I said, I'd made a slight alteration, because this strut here was actually, you don't know that, the green one. So any discrepancy was because of that. So that's why I like colour coding them, and I deliberately chose this teal colour to allow this setup to occur. You can, by the colour coding, pick up discrepancies. I can rotate that. You can do a lot of work inefficiently. I can rotate it into position, and it will start to want to, because some of the geometry will not want to align, and it should. But depending on the length of your they don't align, and that was deliberate. Can you fudge it? Yes, but what was the fudge? The fudge was your thinking, and having them in specific colours. You'll pick up the lines, but the colours help to visually show you your mistake. So that's why I like keeping my items in distinct colours. Don't go changing them like this, so that when you go to reintroduce something back into your model, oh, that's right, I've changed it, and you get more a better outcome. Anyway, hopefully you picked up what I was dribbling on about. These are the things I've picked up. You don't need to do that, but there you go. Anyway, I was trying to toss up which one looked better. If I just, oh crikey, I think I have to back out now. Just wait there a moment, and we're back to where we started. Which version do you think looks better? This version can move up 40 degrees, down 40 degrees. This version here can move up 80 degrees, down 80 degrees. This one here can move up 6 and down 6. But which one looks better? This one is the easiest to build. Of course, you just put your router across there and reduce the surface level. This one looks quite pleasing because it looks more purposeful. This looks quite utilitarian. This one again, not too bad, but the leeway for adjustment, and it's not that we should have that much adjustment required for the struts. That's not the point. This was done so that when we were assembling it, we may have to have misalignment to get the bolts, etc., through the hubs. Here may be too tight a tolerance. Alternatively, of course, we can thickness or have the finished width of the timber itself just being flush, and we don't have to have any recesses, and the brackets go on the flush surface. And that's probably just as practical as anything. Okay, so that was just a quick little video that extended into another 10-minute video. Hey, hope it was of some use. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye.